the 6 months ended September, Transnet's revenue jumped almost 8% to 18.4 billion rand. This is despite the impact of a 17-day strike. I am now joined in studio by the CEO, Chris Wells, of course the acting CEO, Chris Wells. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's start off with that. I mean, you're the acting CEO of Transnet. You've been so for the last, say, around 2 years. When are we going to be hearing news on that front?
Eleni, I've got no idea. You must ask the minister that.
Okay, Chris, is there anything else you can tell us on that? I mean, is the search still on, basically?
Yes, the process for appointing new board members, a new chairman, and searching for a CEO is continuing.
Chris, we saw revenue up 7.6% to 18.7 billion rand. Cash generated from operations increasing by 13.5%. What contributed to higher cash on your balance sheet?
Well, greater efficiency. We've got a quantum leap strategy which is focused on productivity and efficiency across the board, which included also managing costs very well. And our costs are 1.6 billion down on what was expected.
How did you achieve this?
Through very close management. We said when we introduced the quantum leap strategy that we needed to focus on cash flow and productivities to enable the very big infrastructure program that we're rolling out to be affordable.
Okay, well, where were you able to start cutting costs? I mean, clearly, it's amazing you've beat inflation with the cost-saving measures. This is despite the fact that you've seen high personnel costs and electricity tariffs. So how exactly did you achieve the cost measures?
It's really productivity-based. So it covers the wide range of costs and making sure we keep overtime under good control and being careful on all manageable costs and overheads.
And in terms of cash generated by operations, there are reports that Transnet has been selling steam locomotives, the heritage steam locomotives, for scrap. Is that true?
Well, that's a very minor issue. There are dozens of steam locomotives around. Most of them are in foundations or heritage organizations, of which we control some. And we make them available to heritage organizations.
So you haven't been selling any for scrap?
Well, there are quite a lot of them. Any heritage organisation that wants a steam locomotive is welcome to have them. But it's a very minor issue.
Chris, touching on the fact that there's a lot of concerns about PRASA and Transnet's relationship, we have heard news that you are going to be working together. There's also a lot of concerns about the allegedly 1.3 billion rand owed to PRASA. How is that relationship going to work going forward, given the fact that you have met and there are some strategies that will be implemented soon?
Well, I think we've restored it to a constructive working relationship. The 1.2, nearly 1.3 billion rand is owed by PRASA and will be paid in due course. And we will do everything we can to enable PRASA to return its service to normal.
Just looking at the long distance passenger numbers that we've seen come to the fore, apparently that is down quite extensively as well. Some are talking about 23% down for the year. Is that number correct?
Well, I have nothing to do with passenger rail. You must ask PRASA that question. But
you do have synergies that, of course, between Transnet and PRASA, which, of course, directly influences Transnet as well.
Yes, we have no impact on their operations other than providing slots on our network and assisting with the maintenance of their locomotives. So on volume figures, I'm not in a position to comment.
Where we have seen a nice increase is, of course, the demand coming through for long-distance commodity shipments as well, and a great number that we've seen coming through for iron ore products and so forth. We have seen quite a nice jump. Of course, the strike impacted operations quite extensively. But tell us about capacity utilization at this point in time, and are you operating in full capacity?
Well, on manufactured goods, volumes are still below pre-September 2008. But in coal export, manganese export and iron ore export, we're operating very much at capacity. Iron ore export last week we did record levels, and the coal export line is the first year of turnaround for 5 years, and it's performing really well. And at a temp of 1.4 million tonnes a week, which is the best it's ever performed.
It's also interesting to note that many have been talking about the fact that South Africa needs to start increasing its capacity when it comes to railroads and railways, and it seems that many companies are now going to other ports so that they do get their shipments on time. What is your response to that? And I think also in the backdrop of the fact that you are planning to invest around 93.4 billion rand over the next 5 years to ensure that you do start increasing operations extensively.
Well, Transnet's invested 71 billion in the past 5 years. So the whole fabric of infrastructure in South Africa has changed completely. And as you rightly say, we're going to spend another 93 billion over the next 5 years. So at our ports at present, we've got plenty of capacity in the container terminals through the investment. We've got modern technology in cranes and backup port equipment. And in 2 years' time, 15% of our total locomotive fleet will be brand new. And we haven't bought locomotives for more than 10 years. So really the whole fabric of infrastructure is changing rapidly and capacity is being built.
Well, it's also interesting to note, I mean, we are seeing increased demand for coal and various commodities within the country. It would be fantastic to start seeing even more railroads in the country. How do you see the synergies playing between long-distance passenger railroads and, of course, shipping of commodities, not only outside the country but also within the country? Do you think that we can start seeing a fantastic increase going forward, given the fact that we have perhaps lagged in comparison to the other developing countries outside of Africa, of course?
Yes, well, obviously we focused on the freight railway, and typically freight railways and passengers don't mix because the tempo for freight is long trains going slowly but regularly, and the tempo for passengers is short trains going very quickly. So typically around the world you don't try and mix those two, but we're providing plenty of capacity going forward. 56 billion of our 5-year future capital investment program will go into the rail business, expanding capacity.